He's back on the program, ladies and gentlemen, a Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, and 3-time All-Pro for the Raiders. You can catch him on Fox NFL Sunday every weekend. From crushing guys on the field to this just lovely, delightful gentleman we have in front of us, a grandfather, a dad, and somebody who wants to talk about Joe Burrow's finger.
You broke out the black and white footage.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let's look at it. Howie, what do you got here? Because the internet's going crazy about this. You got a game in a couple hours. The Bengals have to win this if they have dream of the playoffs or the Super Bowl. Can we run that again?
Well, I have to give credit to my crazy son, Chris.
Okay.
Who was up at about 2 in the morning. I get this call. I'm like, why are you calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning? And he's up watching all 22, and he's seen every angle of the game, and he's tracked exactly where he believes Burrow's injury occurred. I think it was on the second or third play. He got caught, his hand caught between, I think, the defensive end and the offensive tackle, and that's when it happened. The severity of the injury,
wow,
who knows? And your guess was right. I mean, you're constantly putting on some kind of a compression to avoid any kind of swelling, etc. And Joe's tough.
I think my control room is trying to find that injury. What time was this that Chris Long was doing this?
2 in the morning.
Is this normal Chris Long behavior?
Chris is a hard-working guy. I'm not up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching film anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got Chris and Kyle doing your bidding. We're trying to effort for the tape right here while he's up at 2 in the morning doing his thing. I'm going to ask you a real easy question here. How do you stop the Ravens' offense?
It's if they struggle at all, it seems like they struggle sometimes in the red zone. He's not been on the same page with the receivers. Some drop balls in the end zone. Fourth quarter leads have been an issue with them. I really like Baltimore. That being said, I really like Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh seems to kind of find an improbable way to win every week. Mm-hmm. And how far can Cleveland's defense carry them? And I think they can carry them in playoffs, particularly with the schedule being as favorable as it is for them. This is a big game for them versus Pittsburgh, but they've got one down the road versus Cincinnati also.
Yeah, I mean, Cincy and Coach Lou, who I love, everybody's talking about Coach Lou being a head coach potentially in this National Football League. It's not going to help him that they gave up, I think, like 544 yards to a rookie named CJ Stroud in this Texans offense. I don't even know how that happened.
Well, I think in 5 or 6 years, maybe 7, when we're looking back at CJ Stroud's rookie year, we could be kind of giving Lou a pass on this, because it seems like CJ Stroud has he's figured it out. I'm not sure what exam he struggled with at the combine and why it was leaked or whatever, and we can debate that all day. I've always been of the thought process: believe what you see. And I don't know what he was asked to do to Ohio State leading up to that Georgia game, but I'm looking at the last time he was on the field as a collegiate athlete, and he was all that in a box of chocolates. And believe what you see. It's like if you're looking at Josh Allen in Wyoming, believe what you see. If and fill in the blank for the player. I think they go through such, they grind things out between the end of the college football season, through the combine, through the pre-draft, the whole 9 yards, and they find reasons not to trust what they see. And I just believe you trust the film. And CJ Stroud's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I love to hear that. What an absolute stud. I'm sure he'll win Offensive Player of the Year. He's just crushing it. D'Amico Ryan's doing really well. He said, believe what you see about Josh Allen. What I see, I think what everybody sees, are turnovers. Mm-hmm. Turnovers and a loss to Sean Payton and company for, short stint with you last year, of course, and he was taking a bit of a breather from coaching, but the Bills decided to part ways with Ken Dorsey.
He was getting a snack is what he was doing.
Yeah, literally, just having a little nosh, a little something, a Capri Sun, some orange slices. He got back right back in there. Josh Allen leads the league in turnovers again. This has been true for several years now. Is it more about Josh, or is it more about how Ken Dorsey was running the offense?
I think it's a combination of things. I think Josh is there are guys, and Kyle Shanahan's talked about this, regarding his young quarterback, and then quarterbacks he's had in the past, where you want to be able to cut it loose and let the guy rip. And Josh is a freak show. He's physically a freak show. There's not a throw he can't make. He's big, he's athletic, he can pull it down and go. He sometimes runs the contact. He sometimes thinks that maybe his arm is a little bit too big. And, and I was watching some footage from the Manning cast, after the one interception to the sideline on corner route from the opposite hash, which is, a brutal throw to make. The ball's in the air a long time. And it's probably I think Payton and Eli were saying it was their least favorite throw. And they didn't want to make that throw from the opposite hash because it's in the air so long. I think the offense was static pre-snap. I think it was 2-by-2, two receivers. He's in gun too much. I'd like to see him under center a little bit more. I'd like to see the run game be a little more prevalent, and I'd like to see play action pass. And I think he can do all of those things. When you look at his numbers, under center, play action pass, they're good. And this just in, that's the case around the league. If you can run the football, play action pass is a high success rate for quarterbacks and offenses. So I think it became stagnant, not a lot of pre-snap motions, certainly not a San Francisco offense where, all the pre-snap motions, and which benefits both the run game and the pass game. It puts people in position to be successful and do. I didn't see a lot of that in Buffalo. It's kind of like, Josh, you're Superman, take the snap and let's go.
Howie, it sounds like you're saying it's more about Ken Dorsey.
Well, listen, Josh Allen's not going anywhere. So it has to be about Ken Dorsey in that sense. And I think Josh is a tremendous talent. He's a young guy. The things that you'd want him to do is, maybe anticipate when you're throwing that 65-yard bomb into double coverage. Now, a lot of quarterbacks do that. Jalen Hurts does that with his receivers. He has tremendous confidence that in a 50-50 ball, even on a 2-on-1 coverage, my guy's going to come down with the ball, or at least play defender and knock the ball down.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case in Buffalo. And I think the losses they had on defense are big. And I think that really hurts them, and their offense can't afford to turn the football over. And I think it was time they needed to press a reset button because they were slowly kind of spinning their wheels downhill. The snowball started to go down the hill, and they don't have much time, and their schedule is brutal.
I asked Gronk yesterday, and we'll get to Gronk and his skydiving.
What did you ask Gronk yesterday?
Gronk, it's about Daboll, because he was, I think Daboll was his tight end coach 4 or 5 years, and he's always spoke really, really highly about him.
Yep.
And he told me in August, Josh is still misses Daboll, and he's really going to miss him. And if you think about what Daboll did and what made it work so well, Daboll found him matchups and easy completions and motions and shifts early for Allen. And it's just true. There was more motion, there was more play action, everything you're saying.
Yep.
But Gronk made it more about the kind of guy Daboll is, that Daboll gets you prepared and lets him cut it loose, lets him, feel prepared enough that he's not overthinking. So now Joe Brady comes in. Of course, he's got a connection with Joe Burrow, a history, reputation. Like, what does Joe Brady need to do? I'll ask you the same thing, to sort of let Josh or be as successful as he can be.
That's the interesting part. I mean, when you do these kind of things, mid-season, we're right there pretty much, or a little bit past. You can't drastically change the offense. I think there are things that you can do that we've just talked about.
Run more.
Maybe run more, put him under center more, play action pass, a little pre-snap motion, get your receiver to a spot in coverage or in a matchup that you want. through motion and formation and bunch formations. There are a million things you could do. You look across the league and the creative ways that offensive coordinators, one, get their receivers and their run game in the right position through pre-snap motion and formations. And I think the other thing is putting your quarterback in a position to be successful. And I love play action pass. As a defender, when you have to come off the ball, stop, reset, check the run, and then start again, the ball's out in 2.2 seconds, 2.3 seconds. So, the play's over. The quarterback is safe. It helps the offensive line, helps the quarterback. There's a lot of free runners because safeties have to run up if they're honoring your run game. It's like with Philadelphia. You see it all the time where there's free runners because of the play action. You see it in San Francisco. There's free runners because of the pre-snap motion tied to the run game. And now the quarterback has a lot of options off a true hard play fake, turn his back to the defense, turn around, and reset.
And I was texting my producer, and I said, how much play action did they run with Daboll? Bills ran more play action than any team in the NFL in Daboll's last year, 15th this year in play action percentage.
Yeah, you know what, particularly with the injuries they have on defense, where you don't want to put that group on the field all the time. That the game versus, I think where he got hurt, I think you can see the defense is slowly kind of, it's taking a bit of a step back, and that's understandable. You got so much out of those players at every level. I mean, they're injured at every level. So the offense needs to be on the field. They need to protect the football as much as they can, and they need to score points. There's the conundrum. We won all of it.
We talked about Sean Payton a little bit, so I do want to ask about this. And they've got a big one against the Vikings, a big primetime game yet again, so a national audience can see what this team, what this defense maybe is made of, which is just stunning with what this turnaround has been. And I talked to Sean when I was there in August watching training camp, and he talked a lot about how he loved those green room moments with you and your whole crew over there at Fox, watching games together, what that meant to him, and what a nice reprieve or snack, as you're calling it, was. But what is your perspective?
We talked a lot of football.
I'm sure, yeah.
It was really fascinating for me to be in the room with him because I've been sitting next to Jimmy Johnson for 26 of my 30 years at Fox. So, here's a guy who, check the box, build teams, sees talent, coaches, in the front of the room, great, all of that. And there's one specific philosophy there. Having played under Tom Flores, that's a totally different philosophy. Hall of Fame coach, a guy who commanded a lot of respect without a lot of kind of bravado and all that. It was interesting to hear Sean. A lot of Sean's philosophy is Bill Parcells, the New York Giants. That to me, you always go back to the foundation of where you came from and how you were brought up. And I think Bill had a big influence on him. And in terms of that defense, listen, that defense was top 2 or 3 in scoring last season. Anytime you bring in a new head coach and you change defensive coordinators, to me, that's like, it's like, for example, with San Francisco. San Francisco's had 3 defensive coordinators under Kyle Shanahan, right? 2 of them were in-house, essentially, the initial hire and then, of course, the second hire, and then they had to go out of the building. And what we saw over the last 4 weeks was kind of a little bit of a change in philosophy where they're tweaking things, maybe bringing blitzes when they don't need to bring blitzes, getting complicated with games when the front 4 is the foundation of what they are, and let them go and leave them alone. And I think it's taken a little time to kind of figure that out over the last few weeks, and they got back on track last week. So am I surprised? No, because teams that are coached really well, and Sean Payton is a great coach, they always look better as the season goes on, particularly in the tail end. And it's you can look at it in the history of the league, and the Parcells teams, the Belichick teams, Pittsburgh, teams that are great, San Francisco, they kind of peak late and their young players kind of find their way towards the end of the season.
From 70 to #1 scoring defense in the league, though, have you ever seen anything quite like that?
Well, I've never seen anything like Miami's offense. I've never seen anything like that from a speed standpoint. Listen, when I got in the league, we were watching film on real film. So, you cut the film up, you brought it home, and you taped it together when it broke. And, you put a sheet up on the wall, and then it was beta, and then it was, VHS, and then it became quiet, and, it was nothing more than that. And now we're tracking the speed of every player in the league.
Yeah.
And they're running 23 miles an hour. So if you want to kind of figure that out, go out in your driveway, go out in front of your house and let a car go by at 23 miles an hour. Now, I've seen that kind of speed. I played with Bo Jackson, and I remember sitting on my helmet first time he came in from Kansas City. He just came in from baseball, and I'm sitting on my helmet. It's offensive day, and I'm sitting right behind the offense because I want to look at him. And all I see is ass and thighs, and this guy's running like a 4.18 around the corner. I've never heard an entire stadium, seriously, gasp on a one-man reverse.
Wow.
Where they fake the pitch, he takes 2 steps, plants. It's literally a one-man reverse where the backside tackle releases inside, loops back around, and blocks for him. Blocking is, for him is get out of the way.
Yeah.
Bo was amazing. And so imagine Tyreek Hill at 230, 235.
I can't.
So,
crazy.
yeah. So I saw that before. Now, apparently they have a bunch of guys like that. And you tie that in with a guy who was in charge of, he was the run game coordinator in San Francisco. I thought he looked a lot like a philosophy teacher I had at Villanova. I'm not sure. He could be maybe the guy's son. He is so fascinating. He's so anti, football coach with a dip in, yelling at you, screaming at you. He's not that guy. He's a guy that's taken what they do in San Francisco, granted with different pieces and players who are very fast and athletic, and all that pre-snap motion and all that stuff. And people are starting to kind of figure it out. Some people on defense are just staying static, and they're just saying, we're not going to react to the pre-snap motion. We're just going to play zone. We're going to tackle. We're going to be physical, and we're not going to let you over the top. And that's great in theory, but we see safeties taking bad angles towards Tyreek Hill. It's embarrassing. So the 70 points, albeit alarming, scary, maybe a low point for a lot of people in that building. I'm more impressed with how they've kind of recovered.
I'm trying to see who they have. Who did they have? They have the Raiders have the Dolphins, I believe. Is that true? Raiders have the Dolphins this week, so that's an interesting game. You just gave them a lot of love. I don't think Raider Nation's going to be very happy with you, Mr. Howie Long. After that, I got to ask you.
I think Raider Nation's fine with me.
Yeah, you know what? I'll shut up. You're right. We're talking about teams that can turn it around. Maybe the Bills can. They make changes from Ken Dorsey. They get a little more play action. We've got other teams like the Broncos and their defense turning it around. And then your Raiders, 2-game win streak. Antonio Pierce,
Love it.
Is he working his way into not just a cute story? Is he working his way into a head coaching situation?
Well, time will tell. I think his eyes are wide open in terms of it's an opportunity, and I think the Rich Bisaccia situation a couple of years ago when they got into the playoffs and surprised people, and he closed out the year really well, and he seemed like he had a grasp of who the team was. There was an identity, there was a culture, and I think maybe Mark probably learned something from that to just let's sit back. And let's do our homework on people outside the building, but let's take a look at what Antonio does. Antonio grew up in Compton. When I was playing at the Coliseum, He was a big Raider fan. He understands the history. He understands the kind of the identity of the football team. And I think, listen, when you walk out of a room from Antonio Pierce, he won as a player.
Yeah.
You're not going to have any kind of misconception about what his thoughts are or what his expectations are. He will tell you directly, as he called that timeout at the end of the game and said, back the F up. It's sometimes it's the guy in the front of the room. I call it the saran wrap factor. When they get in front of the room, in front of a bunch of grown men, can they lead? Can they create a culture? Can they create an identity? I think he can do those two things. And now the coaching staff is a mixed bag of, the old coach and who he has. Mm-hmm. We'll see. Listen, are they a team that from, first player to 53rd is the best in the league right now? No, but you want to establish a culture and identity and a direction. And I think he can do that.
It's really well said, and one of the hardest things to do, I could imagine, as a head coach and leader of a bunch of millionaires. Howie, we appreciate you so much. But next time we got to get you in a plane. We got to get you skydiving with Gronk, tandem. That's my dream. I hope that happens.
You got a better chance of seeing God than me skydiving, I'll tell you that.
We appreciate you.